So Madam Web is finally here, the one we've all been waiting for. I wasn't sure what my video was going to be this week, so I went to see Madam Web yesterday to see if it was worth talking about. It isn't, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. If you've somehow managed to miss the massive Madam Web hype train, it's one of those Marvel movies, and I really do mean those quotation marks. It's one of Sony's SpiderMan spin-off movies from a universe without Spider-Man. I think a decent chunk of the money these films make is based on people thinking they're part of the Tom Holland, Iron Man, Marvel universe, and not whatever the fuck this is. I think based on the trailers and the press tour and all the information that we knew about this going in, the question wasn't whether or not it was going to be good, it was how bad is this thing really going to be? And now that I've seen it, I can report back that it's pretty bad. And I'd like to dive into why. I will say that a decent amount of this is fine. And I mean fine rather than good. Just the most neutral, inoffensive, something that I would still come away from feeling bad about, but just nothing. It's not the Room level stuff. But then you've got about 30% of it that's the most embarrassing and incompetent stuff that I've seen put on the big screen by a big studio like this in quite a long time. It's hard to think of another example that's just, what are they doing? It's such a blur of stuff that it is quite hard to know where to start when talking about it. I guess the main character, the titular character, her name is Cassie Webb, which I didn't expect and didn't know, so the fact her last name is actually Webb and she's a spider hero, I thought that was fun. It's like Mark Webb directing The Amazing Spider-Man. That's probably the happiest I felt in the screening is when I found out that was her name. I don't know what's going on with her, really. She's kind of portrayed as, I'm awkward and I'm distant and I'm not very nice, but also I'm super sociable. But she's constantly telling you that she's awkward and distant and not. It's like, she's saving the lives of these three girls and she goes, I'm not saving your life, I'm not saving you, I'm not a hero actually, you're all a burden and I don't care. And the journey that she goes on, the lesson that she learns is, actually I am a hero and I do care. But it is so just immediately obvious from the start that she cares. So there's not really a journey. There's not really any kind of, I'm seeing her grow here. It's just she goes from doing everything while saying, I'm not doing this at all actually, to doing it while saying, I am nice now. She's always nice, really. She just keeps telling you that she's not. And that's not in a Han Solo kind of I'm not in this for your rebellion, kid. And that's actually backed up by actions. It's literally just all the heroic actions that you'd expect paired with just this very surface level ambivalence. So the plot of the movie is that she develops visions into the future. And at the start, at least, it's not conveyed necessarily how you'd expect. It's not, I've got a vision, I'm seeing something, hang on, what does the future say? It's more that she lives out these events and then it turns out she hasn't and she gets to live them out again while already knowing what's going to happen. Everything goes a bit fucky and then, the editing chops back and suddenly we're in the past and it's like, okay, something's happened here. In that sense, it's more a bit like Groundhog Day or Edge of Tomorrow than it is like a That's So Raven. And that's unique and interesting. I quite like that time loop element, I get a chance to do this again. That would be fine. The fact it's conveyed with the weird choppy editing is unfortunate because that's how the whole film looks. That's how everything in this movie is edited. Before she has the powers, once she has the powers, in scenes that she's not even in, everything is jarring and weird. And I don't think there's a single scene in this film that doesn't have a few moments of, hang on, that's weird. Why is it cut there? Why is it looking in that way? I didn't really get a chance to see what was going on here. Something like that happens all the time, probably every minute. Probably it's that kind of editing that you can never settle into a scene and go, I'm letting this take me on a journey. It's so fast, not fast-paced, something's happening, we're all moving so quickly. It's just that the scenes move and they're done before you really register that they're happening, and then we're at 3 scenes ahead of where we expect to be, and so it moves through each scene very quickly, it moves through the film very quickly. At the start of the film, there was the warning from the BBFC saying, brief bloody images, and I kept making myself laugh while watching because I thought, yeah, most of these images are pretty bloody brief. It adds this weird, distracting element to all the dialogue scenes, and it makes the action scenes completely incomprehensible and unbearable. The film's climax especially feels like a summary of the film's climax as you're watching it. It's moving through it in such a weird way that it's it's showing you, I guess, objectively what you need to see, but nothing that makes it feel like you're actually watching the scene play out, if that makes sense. Like, the villain's presence in it is almost like a flashback to, oh, here's how we defeated the villain, rather than like, oh, he's any kind of threat here. It's like he disappears, fireworks will hit him. It's very strange. It really is. And God, thinking about it, maybe the film is more than like 40%, maybe it's 60% embarrassing. It's rough. It really is. See, that's what I said about this stuff just blurring into one another, and all of these elements impact all the other elements. It's just a big mess of a blur. Let's talk about Cassie again. What has she got going on with her? She has a bit of stuff with her mum, like an emotional, traumatic backstory. Her mother died, she thinks, during childbirth, while she was researching spiders in the Amazon. And Cassie has this stuff of like, oh, well, you know, she's kind of abandoned me, and she wasn't taking her pregnancy seriously. She was out in the Amazon away from proper medical stuff because she was prioritizing her work over everything. And that does get the resolution that you'd expect it to get. But I think they clearly thought, oh, hang on, this doesn't hit hard enough. There's not enough drama here to start with for the resolution to really work. I know, let's really drive home how much, you know, Dakota Johnson blames her mum here. And so you get these weird, there's like an ADR line that's like, hope the spiders were worth it, mom. And it's like, oh, Jesus, that's your mum, man. She died. There's another bit where she goes, I don't understand why my mum hated me so much. And you're like, oh, hang on there. I don't know. Is that where we are? Did she hate you? That feels very out of nowhere compared to her usual feelings of, oh, you know, I wish she'd cared a little bit more about me. Yeah, that's very funny. Just a weird imbalance there throughout that subplot. She gets that closure. I don't know, am I doing spoilers? It feels like a movie you can't really spoil, because nothing surprising happens in it. By the end, she kind of has a found family situation with the 3 girls she's been protecting. She says, like, you 3 are my own, you are all I need. And it's like, oh, okay. They had a few days of hectic kind of bonding as they looked after one another, and I think that's nice, but the idea that they're now a family and that, you know, that was what she was after in the first place. Oh, wow, she's now found her family. We know that she went into like foster care as a kid, and she seems to say that she was adopted or that worked out well for her, but we have no idea what childhood she had or what family she has beyond just these 3 children that she has spent 3 days with, I suppose. So that does not hit the way I would want it to, really. The most hilarious, like, lesson that the main character learns, if you can call it that, is they do a spin on with great power comes great responsibility, because she's a kind of spider woman. And, like, they're telling her about the powers that she has from this spider that bit her mom, and is like, oh, you know, you have the ability to see the future and all these different branching possibilities. Once you accept this and you accept this responsibility, great power will come. And it's like, that's such a hilarious inversion of with great power comes great responsibility, because it's like, oh, if you take this responsibility, you get so many good powers, man. It's so cool. I think that's so funny. Imagining Uncle Ben just like, Spider-Man, guess what? You can like do such cool things. I think that's just, what is that? What that lesson? Take charge of your power, I suppose, but it's really funny that they twist that into something like badass. So by the end, she's accepted this power. She, you know, gets a more superhero-y look, and you're just like, oh, what was this all for? I don't know. As a lead, I don't think she's very likable. I don't think anyone in this film is really likable. There's not really much that's engaging about any of them. Everyone is just kind of awkward and rude. There's no pace to the dialogue. There's just, to be honest, there's a lot of like dead air. I said that things move quickly, but the dialogue scenes, although cut strangely, there's just a lot of, someone said on Letterboxd, it's like there's a Zoom meeting delay between each line. It's really weird. The supporting cast is mostly just the trio of girls that she's trying to save, that the baddie wants to kill before they become badass spider women and kill him in 10 years or so. And they are just kind of a bit snarky. That's how they are. I think at the start there's just an absence. They're bickering in the car, and there's just an absence of chemistry to any of it. And it's none of their faults, really. I think it's just, as I said, this dead air between them, and it's this meant to be this snappy, oh, you know, we're hard to control. We're just kind of angry at you. We're not going to trust you. And But it's such an awkward set of scenes. I think maybe it gets a bit better as it goes along. I don't care for any of them, really, as the film continues. I think Sydney Sweeney is probably the best of the three, just because she's got this kind of earnestness to her. She's very overly sincere in a way that the other two are just snarky. Especially, what's her name? The Dora the Explorer, Isabella Merced. She really has nothing to do beyond maybe one scene where she does a bit of emotion. I think they're really let down by the source material, and weirdly, it's like they're there all the time, but they never get the focus that they need to make them worth telling a story about, I suppose. Their collective arc is that they learn to trust this weird stranger, Dakota Johnson, that showed up and kidnapped them without any explanation. I think that's weird because, no, I think they were very reasonable to not trust her early on in the film. That doesn't feel like something, like an actual lesson has been learned. I guess they learned to trust themselves or whatever, but again, it's all flimsy. They pretty much do spell out, we're not impulsive anymore, we're going to make smart decisions and we trust you, because that's how people speak in this movie. A lot of the dialogue is just kind of hilarious. I know people were disappointed not to have, he was in the Amazon with my mother when she was researching spiders before she died. But that's how every line in this movie sounds. That's how every person talks when they're giving exposition or just having a kind of normal conversation about themselves. Or there's a bit where the baddie is having a conversation with Cassie's mum, and she's like, oh, you're talking about the spider people who live here in the Amazon with the spiders, and the spiders give them magic strength and magic powers, yeah? Well, it's not worth talking about them. And it's like, well, okay. Well, I wonder why you said all that then. So let's talk about the villain. He is constantly going, I won't let these three girls destroy what I've built. I'm going to kill them before they kill me. And you just don't really ever know what he's built or why he's built it or what he wants to do beyond just not die. I think it's such a funny... Obviously, it's a small-scale story, and that in some ways is pretty good. He's not trying to destroy the world. But at the same time, who is this guy? I really don't know. It's that classic, everyone is so vague and mysterious that they don't have to bother giving them any sort of depth or character. I think it's so blatantly that. He's so vacuous a character. He's just constantly in his apartment that looks nice. I guess he's rich, and he's talking to his guy in the chair, his tech assistant lady, who seems to maybe be a bit more morally conflicted about killing the children, and then just does it anyway. I guess I almost wondered, is she going to have a moment of standing up to him? No, that's not a thing that happens. Most of his dialogue, I'm talking 95% of it, is replaced with ADR, and at first I was like, okay, is this like a dream sequency kind of thing? Like he perceives time and reality differently to other people, so it's not quite as clear what he's saying or when he's saying it, or it's like in his head. But no, I think they just dubbed him after the fact, changed his lines maybe to change the plot. It's very strange. The editing, choppy as it already is, seems to cut around us ever seeing his lips as he's talking. I don't know if there were big major story changes or cuts. I have no idea. It's really weird that he seems most affected by this. There obviously is ADR elsewhere, but yeah, that was very off-putting in an already off-putting character. He's all about, at the start, getting this spider so that he can rise from nothing to become something. And it's like, but how's he done that? What's his name? I know his name. Ezekiel Sims. How has he built anything? How does being super strong help with that? Really, and what does he do? Why does he dress up like an evil Spider-Man? Why does he dress up like black evil Spider-Man? There is nothing in his character that would suggest this is in any way consistent with him, really. It's not even the outfit of the tribe that he was trying to imitate and take control of their power. It's not even particularly like that. It's just a Spider-Man costume, but evil, but there's no Spider-Man in this universe that he's basing it off. What is going on? They are building to a traditional Peter Parker Spider-Man in this movie. Her friend at the other paramedic is Ben Parker, and they keep saying, "Oh, Ben, your sister's having a baby, are you, Ben? Are you looking forward to being an uncle, Ben? Ben, do you want to be an uncle, Uncle Ben?" And then, they go to the sister's baby shower, and she's like, "Oh, having a baby. Guess what his name's going to be?" And they're like, "Oh, is it going to be Stephen Parker? Is it going to be Ben Parker Jr.? Oh, we'll never know." And then it gets interrupted before we can find find out, and then, her being pregnant and having this baby is this, like, plot thread. They say that Ben's gonna love being an uncle because it's all the fun, but none of the responsibility. They say, you can get shot in Queens. Have you ever been shot in Queens, Uncle Ben? That's a line that does happen. It's maybe worked in a little more naturally, but not really as naturally as you'd really need. It's all very heavy-handed, but I was wondering if this is just pretty standard for a prequel, and then I thought, this isn't a prequel. What would this be a prequel to? It's set in 2003. It's not a prequel to an existing Spider-Man. Like, it's not... unless Andrew Garfield was just a very old-looking 10-year-old in those movies, it's not the MCU, that's for sure. So what are they doing? It's like, okay, will you do a follow-on movie in 10 years or do a time jump and have there be a young Peter Parker? Because what does that even look like in this universe? Because there's 4 Spider-Women, and there was a guy who wore like a black Spider-Man costume 20 years ago who, was killing people in the streets of New York. I don't think that boy in that universe grows up to have any sort of recognizable Peter Parker origin story, because he can't. It's this world already has its spider people, so why dedicate all this time going, Peter Parker's coming, hey look, Peter Parker's mum's having a baby, that baby's going to be Spider-Man, that baby's Peter Parker. What's the point of it? Because we've got this number of existing spider people that we should be dedicating time to in this movie and learning to care about and be invested in, because this is the movie we're watching. It's not like, oh, you guys are going to love seeing Spider-Man on the big screen. And it's like, I've seen Spider-Man on the big screen. I saw him last year. I saw him 2 years before that. He's always on the big screen, and we don't need him teased in this non-Peter Parker Spider-Man movie. It's almost like it's a fundamentally bad idea to build a series of Spider-Man spin-off movies around a non-existent Spider-Man. And I don't know if this is technically in the same universe as your Morbiuses and your Venoms and your Vultures come through a portal and he thinks it has something to do with Spider-Man. I don't know. It doesn't really matter because they can bridge the universes on a whim if they ever want to. But what are they doing? What is happening here? And I know this is the frustration that has been felt with all of these. It's like, why are you doing Venom without Spider-Man? Why are you doing a Morbius solo movie? El Diablo, Craven, all this stuff. It's like, it's not a new sentiment to be like, what is going on? But at the same time, watching this, you just think, what the fuck is going on? All these movies feel like cancelled projects that were in the works, and you read about, oh, they were going to make a movie about this, and go, oh, why was that ever on the cards? And somehow, multiple of these have made it to cinemas. And it is just baffling. And at the very end of this film really felt to me like the biggest example of, this is not a real movie. I'm not watching this. This can't exist in the way that I am currently watching it. Why has anyone spent any time making this a thing that's happened? I think this is probably the worst of the Sony superhero Spider-Man spin-off movies. Like, the Venom movies are funny. Morbius just kind of inoffensively bad, just nothing. This is just shocking. This is just shockingly, ridiculously bizarre. The film wraps up so quickly and then begins to set up a kind of sequel or new Madam Web cinematic universe, and you just feel like, well, this is not going to happen. This is not going to become a thing. It's almost like I think they actually start to play their cards already, almost as with an awareness that this follow-up isn't going to happen. It's, oh, look at these girls in the future. Look what they become, because you certainly won't be seeing it in Madam Web 2. I say, who knows how or why they greenlight these projects, or what the hell Sony are going to do next. Because how did this project even get up and running in the first place? Like, oh, from the writers of Morbius and Gods of Egypt and The Last Witch Hunter, oh, you know what, we'll give them this project that's already going to be bad, and let's just trust them with that and give them all this money. Why? Why has this happened? It's funny that as the MCU starts to dip in quality and overall audience interest, these films are still able to make you feel like you're watching a knockoff of a Marvel movie. You're still thinking, oh yeah, I wish I was watching the MCU, which that's a feat to make you feel that in 2024, I think. I guess comparing it to modern MCU output, it's not necessarily got this same look of visual slop. I guess, again, that's because no one in it has any powers, really, for the most part, except the visions. When you do see Cassie in the web-averse, it looks abysmal, so that CG environment, I guess if there were more CG environments, it would always look bad. I couldn't tell you how the rest of the film looks because the editing doesn't let me see it for the most part. There's maybe some cool angles, weird angles of like the camera tilting on the side of a building, but to be honest, again, it's edited so weirdly that you don't go, oh cool, you go, What are you doing to my eyes? I think I've spent enough time talking about this movie. I didn't like it. I don't think it's very good. You shouldn't go and see it. Or you should, if you want to, make your own mind up. You might love it. I would say it has to be seen to be believed, but I saw it and I still don't believe it. I'm recording this video on Thursday, so by the time it goes out on Sunday, it's probably already going to have left the cultural zeitgeist. It deserves to. I guess the same thing happened to Argyle. That's a film that came out like 2 weeks ago, and it feels like a gazillion years old. It's just going to be, both of these films, a lot of these films are just going to be destined to end up as weird relics of, why did they make this? I guess I'm asking that already. Thank you very much for watching. I know that doing just like a straight up film review on this channel is pretty rare, but since moving to weekly videos, I get the opportunity to cover more varied topics, more timely topics, and to be honest, I'm interested in just playing around with format as well. So let me know what you think in the comments. If you've seen Madam Web, I am so sorry, but do tell me how you felt about it. I will be back next week. Please like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you very soon. Love you lots.